Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Dr. Stephen Greer. This is Dr. Greer, and I'd like to thank the folks at the World Puja Network for hosting us here every 2 weeks. We are very grateful to them for their time and giving us this place where we can share with you an update on all our projects at disclosureproject.org and cseti.org and the orionproject.org. And I'm excited about being able to share with you today something that is right fresh from our journeys overseas. I'm joined today by one of our board members, Dr. Jan Bravo, who's a fellow emergency physician who worked for 20 years as an emergency doctor in the San Jose area in California and who has been working with us very closely since 1998 and is a very dear friend. She accompanied me and another member of our board and the owner of a biotech company, Emery Smith, to a foreign country where we were able to visit the folks who have this possible extraterrestrial biological entity and where we were able to examine it and get full studies on it. And so today we're going to bring you an update on that and the progress we're making on the film Sirius, which you can see information on at sirius.neverendinglight.com. So thank you, Dr. Bravo, for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. This is pretty exciting information that we're going to share today.
Yeah, you want to just sort of give people a picture of sort of what you experienced on this journey that we were just on?
Sure. A few years ago, we first were contacted by the people who held this being, this finding, and asked to come evaluate it. Actually, you were, as a medical doctor and as the head of the Disclosure Project, and that's when we first saw this being. Over time, we have been able to locate a geneticist, actually one of the top geneticists in the world, which when we first visited this person, we did not know this person. And I will say that a lot has changed in the field of investigation of genetics. And we now have someone with a state-of-the-art laboratory who will work with us and help determine if this being is an extraterrestrial biological entity. But we certainly have the best. Now, I will say that the tests have not been run yet, but previous initial evaluation, we do have some initial x-rays, and you and I examined the being. We were able to show pictures of the being, many shots of the being from our first trip, and all the information that we can get so far from those individuals who will be evaluating this being, this finding, is that this does not appear to be anything that they are aware of with all their mass experience that is a result of human genetics.
Right. Well, the main thing also is that when we were there 3 years ago, I was struck by the fact that, number one, it was certainly not a hoax. It was an actual biological entity. It's a humanoid. It has a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. It's only 6 or 7 inches long, thought to be either a very small child of a very small species or something along those lines. And that it had, and it was not something that was put together. Some of the debunkers I had learned said, well, this thing has to be, assembled by the person who has it from bird bones or something like this. And what you find is that, and I found this for years in dealing with people like James Oberg at NASA and other professional debunkers who are on the payroll of the U.S. government, that will make up any kind of outrageous weather balloon swamp gas type story to explain things. And when we've examined it, it's quite clear that it's an actual organic, biological entity that is an organism that's fully intact. I mean, the entire body, head, arms, feet, hands, everything, although it's sort of mummified and very dry. But, there was no question that it was a biological specimen. And there's also no question that it's not old enough to be, millions of years old, like some of the hominids, the predecessors to Homo sapiens, that have been found. So it's not fossilized at all. And yet at the same time, it isn't any known humanoid, and it certainly is not a primate like a chimpanzee or a small other type of a monkey. First of all, it's too upright and it's too humanoid in its appearance, but it's also not of any of those known organisms. So then you begin to question, well, then it's almost a process of exclusion at this point. It's nothing that we know of on this planet. And then, of course, the main thing that we have begun to try to exclude is that is this an actual, say, aborted fetus that had some kind of global pervasive skeletal anomalies that would result in this type of appearance. And to date, no one has been able to link it to any such abnormalities. And I think that the nail in that coffin was when the owner of this radiological center, it's a high-tech center in this country where we went, which at this point we're maintaining confidentiality on the request of the people who have this item, this specimen, this possible ET body. And the actual owner, a medical doctor, a woman who ran and owned this center that had CAT scans and MRIs and all these high-tech imaging equipment, looked at the radiographs, the x-rays, and said, this is absolutely not a fetus because of the degree of the calcification and bone formation of the skeletal system. And she said that unequivocally as a radiological expert. So, and I think, Jan, you'll bear witness that was stated.
Absolutely. We may have that on film. We did film parts of this trip, and that may be on film. We'll have to go back through and see. And she agreed to be on film with her statements, by the way. This is very exciting. Again, some people, that is probably the most often put forth by people who have not seen this or see just a picture of it, that, well, maybe it's an aborted fetus. But when someone studies it and actually looks at it, and as you said, someone with this degree of training makes a comment like that, it's very important.
Well, the other thing that was quite remarkable is that we got an excellent, very detailed CT scan of this organism, which turned out to be much better than an MRI because it's such a dry organism. You really need some water in an organism to get a suitable MRI study. But in this case, since it was so desiccated, which is a word that means incredibly dried out, biological specimen that's very dried out, it was very desiccated. It means that the CAT scan was much more detailed. And as we were sitting in the tech room and they were taking these images and slices of the organism, and then they had a program that created a 3D image of it, and it is absolutely stunning. And you could not only see the internal organs, for example, in the chest, you could see the collapsed lungs were still in the chest cavity, but I'm fairly certain we also saw what was left of the heart of this organism. So the CAT scan, frankly, is dispositive proof that this is, in fact, an intact biological organism. It certainly, at this point, doesn't look to be anything that we know of that's human or anything that's been documented biologically on this planet, which in and of itself would make it an extraordinary scientific discovery, regardless of whether or not it's of extraterrestrial origin, which it certainly appears to be at this point. And so the CAT scan was incredible, and they had a program where they then took all the images and were able to put it into 3D and rotate it and go in through it by piece by piece by piece. It was astonishing. And we're excited because I think that a lot of this detail can then be in the upcoming movie Sirius if we continue to find what we think we're going to find with these genetic studies. Now, in terms of the genetic studies, as Dr. Bravo mentioned, the premier genetic teams in the world are involved with this, a man who is absolutely at the top of his field. And we are going to see that to the extent possible we can get full genetic research on this and see if it matches up with any known human organisms and how many genes we have in common. Now, this is a very complex thing and beyond the scope of this radio show because it gets into a lot of very arcane, state-of-the-art genetic work. But I'll just say that we were able to get some materials. Now, basically, we had to take a little bit of a couple of the ribs to get this material. We were not able to penetrate the chest cavity because it was so fragile and so small and so hardened from being dried out that even with the finest needles and things we had, and we did this all under sterile conditions with a dissecting microscope, which we had FedExed over to this country, that the attempt to do that would have resulted in the destruction of the specimen. And so we had to not go in and penetrate that chest cavity, which was our first line of attack. So our backup was to actually take a couple of pieces of rib, and we were able to see under the dissecting scope that there was bone marrow in those ribs, which was very interesting.
Absolutely. Now, and a lot of it, enough to do the work that needs to be done. You mentioned the desiccation and the dryness. Interestingly, what preserved the specimen so well, the dryness, is part of what made it so toughened and hardened that we couldn't get everything we would like to have gotten, but that's what preserved the specimen. So we're grateful to have gotten what we got.
Right. And we did this under, of course, as I mentioned, full sterile field procedures with sterile instruments and collection procedure, which Dr. Bravo and I and Emery Smith conducted. The owners of the people who have this specimen were just, of course, observing. And it's very exciting because I think that we do have enough materials. At least this is our hope. We're giving you this in real time. We've just returned from, basically for me, a 3-week trip and 20,000 miles of traveling. So I'm a bit jet lagged still, but this is fresh information that we wanted to share with the people who are supporting the project and who we're very grateful to have contributed so generously to serious.neverendinglife.com so we can do this kind of groundbreaking research and get all these studies done and create this historic film. So that's what we found, and I think that I have to say that the people at this radiological center were a bit gobsmacked, to use a good British term, when they saw these X-rays, but then when they saw the CAT scan and went, my God, this is certainly not anything that looks human, but it's a humanoid, and you could actually see the internal organ structures and all the details of this body. And we did do a full body CT scan because the entire organism is only 6 or 7 inches. And we also learned that in the same area where this one was found that there may be other type of creatures. Some have been seen alive and others who have deceased and that are preserved in urns in this remote area. And so if we have the opportunity, we're thinking that at some point in the future we may be able to make an expedition to this part of the world, which is an incredibly remote part of the world, difficult to get to, but in an area where apparently a lot of the native peoples have had contact with these particular ETs and where there are ET craft that have been seen going in and out of the mountains in that area. And some people are surprised at how small the creature is. I said, well, we have humans who are 4 feet tall and we have humans that are 8 feet tall. And you look at the diversity of planets and gravitational fields in the cosmos, it's entirely likely that there are humanoids, human-shaped intelligent life forms that are at adult size, 1 foot or 2 tall, and some that may be 20, 30 feet tall. And this makes complete sense. There's no reason why not. So you kind of have to step out of the sort of anthropocentric, narcissistic human view of things and begin to look at this in a cosmic, universal way. You begin to realize that the diversity of form that there may be in the cosmos is endless, infinite. And so, and yet there is this sort of a morphogenic field persistence of a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, a chest cavity, an abdominal cavity, and what have you. From so far, one of the things that's going to be very interesting to see is when the team of medical doctors and PhD geneticists that are associated with this top Ivy League university are able to review not only the genetic material, but all these CT scans and X-rays, what they may come up with in terms of all the different anomalies that are present in this creature, both internally, which have never been seen before, because this particular creature has never been CAT scanned or MRI'd, and so I think it's going to be very interesting to hear their report. And of course, this is all in process. We don't have those results yet, and probably will not have for at least a month or so. So we're really racing the clock here in terms of getting this information that can get disclosed in this film serious. So this is why was something we dropped everything to do, and we were able to get there and back successfully and in one piece, and to that we're very grateful.
Yeah, we were really amazed, first of all, at looking at the being, at how intact it was. But when we looked on the scan, it's amazing to see all the vertebrae throughout the spine, the limbs. The detail is amazing. This is extraordinarily well preserved, so they will have a lot to work with. It's not what's missing, it's what's there. And I will say that the people at the center commented that they have done scans of mummies before that have been brought to them, and this looks nothing like those.
Right. Yeah, this is a unique situation, and the people who will try to debunk it as something that was assembled out of other parts, or once you see the scan, it puts a lie to that immediately. This is no question. This is an intact, total intact creature. What it is, it's still pending, but it certainly. It probably at a certain point is going to be a process of exclusion. In other words, unless you had a database of genetic material from known extraterrestrial species, which I'm sure classified programs do have since we've been shooting their spacecraft down and collecting their dead bodies for 60 years. But since that's not available to scientists in mainstream Ivy League universities, you really are going to have to just be able to then look at the genetic sequences and the markers that are associated with humans that this one has or may have additional markers or additional material or have markers that are absent, if you get my drift. Because, as all of you know, or maybe you don't know, Homo sapiens, humans, are 98% identical to chimpanzees and orangutans. It turns out the closest genetic lineup are orangutans and humans, not chimpanzees. They just recently discovered. Yeah. But the fact is it's 98%. So there's only a 2% difference in the genetic code between an orangutan or a chimpanzee and a human. So since this is a humanoid, one might expect a lot of similarity because it is a head and 2 arms and 2 legs and organs, and yet it's where the differences lie, and maybe what's there that's not in humans, or where there's something that is not there that does exist in a human, where you're going to be able to make these distinctions. And so this is a very involved process and highly analytical. And I'm not trying to bore people, but I'm just trying to drill down a little bit so people get a sense of the scope of the kind of thinking that has to go in to this analysis by the geneticists and the doctors who are working with us on this.
Well, it is important. All that you're saying is very important for people to know, and it's not something that we're going to have the answer tomorrow. So as soon as we have it, we will give it to people, but we're being very careful. First of all, we're not letting this out of our hands. We're passing it directly into the hands of the geneticist so that it will be fresh as a chain of evidence, just in any forensic evaluation. And again, as soon as we know something, we'll tell people, but we want them to exhaustively study it as best they can. That's our goal.
Yes, and in fact, we were able to film the entire process of taking the x-rays, doing the CAT scan, then going back and doing the sterile field genetic sampling procedure. All that is filmed in high-definition, state-of-the-art cameras, both still photography and video. And it shows us taking the clip of the rib and putting it into the sterile containers and sealing them and marking them. And then those are going to be handed off directly to the genetic analysts. And all of that has been documented. So it's very important for people to understand we're doing this very, very carefully.
Right. We will say that the people that we're working with have taken good care of the specimen and are very excited to be having someone, they've had the specimen for some time, and they're very excited to have someone of your caliber really in charge of analyzing this, as I am. So we'll see where we go from here. But I will say that the lineup of people who are going to be evaluating this it'll be a multidisciplinary. There are people who are specialists in bone structure, people are specialists in fetal abnormalities, just to make sure that it's not that. We are going to have a lot of people look at the results of this. It's not just going to be one person saying, this is it. And we're looking at it from all those points of view because we need to. So we believe that this is a very important finding. But we are not just going to limit. We're not going to limit the evaluation in any way. We're going to do what we can. Now, I will say that we were very careful. We took the material that we could get safely, but again, as you said, it was a very fragile, small specimen, and so we respected it as well. So we would like to do carbon dating if we can, but if we can add that to the genetic testing, we will. But again, there's a great deal that can be done with what we got, and we'll do everything that we can do.
Yeah, we do have a world-renowned facility to do carbon dating lined up. There's a minimum amount of material they need, even with the most state-of-the-art. We're not sure we have that amount, so that's still to be determined. We could not take more material without disfiguring the creature, and we did not want to do that. So this is something we're not sure if the carbon dating will able to be done or not, because in terms of our triage and priority list, it was get the x-rays, get the CAT scan, see all the internal structures, and get a very detailed CAT scan of the creature, get enough material to do all the genetic studies we need. And then the last thing is if we do have enough of this material left over after the genetic studies, then we'll see if it's enough to do the carbon dating, and that is to be determined. We do not know yet. We do have a top-drawer team standing by at one of the world's most prestigious institutes that can do that with very, very, very small samples. But we just don't know if we'll have enough left over after we have to take what we have to from what we got for the genetic work.
Right. Now, again, I'll say something that we've said before about this. Just in looking at the specimen, it's besides being well preserved, it's very well formed and symmetric, which is good as far as abnormality, as far as ruling out a lot of fetal abnormalities and syndromes. It's interesting because we've talked, and when we were there, if you remember, we were commenting again on how, on the differences from, even though it's humanoid, from the human form. The arms are longer. The shoulders are different. The whole the whole physiological architecture of the shoulders, you see where they support longer arms. It's just fascinating to study, and I'm really excited for people to see this when it comes out. And in fact, on the CAT scan, they'll be able to see that very well. But there were so many things like this that we marveled at anew by seeing it 3 years later, right?
Right, and not only that, but when you get the scan of the head and for one thing, the head would be, if you can look at yourself in a mirror, it's as if our heads would be as large as from your collarbone to your pelvis. That's how big the head is proportional to the body. It's amazing. Yeah. And what's even more amazing is what we call the cranial vault, which is the part of the head from your eye socket, your eyebrows upward. It's at least 3 or 4 times bigger than our cranial vault proportionally, as a proportion, which is also very interesting. But it's not deformed at all.
No.
It's also interesting because the head comes to a point at the top, and whereas we have a teeny little point at the back of our skulls called the occipital process, if you feel the back of your head. So it's and the eye socket, oh my goodness, the eye sockets and the orbit, what we call the orbit, which is where the eyeballs sit in, although the eyeballs are not in there, but it's a fascinating, a very, very different structure. Everything about this creature is very different from a human, and yet it's symmetrical, so it's not like it's some grotesquely deformed thing. It's perfectly symmetrical being, except for the trauma, because it was hit on the side of the head, and back behind the right ear, there is a caved-in area, and you can see that the head it was sort of hit, and the jaw and the head was torqued and twisted because of the blow. And on the right side of the creature's arm, there was a fracture that went all the way through what would be the upper arm or the humerus, and it was through and through a fracture. So there was trauma, and apparently, I mean, my own feeling about it is that I think this creature subsequently died of the trauma, although we're not sure if it was immediately after the trauma or not, because there's some evidence that the wound on the arm had begun to recalcify, which would indicate some healing process and not an immediate death. So there's a lot of information from our study this time that we did not get 3 years ago, and so it's very exciting. The other thing is that genetic science and processes and what's possible today, and at a reasonable cost. I mean, the work we're doing now would probably have been $1 million to $2 million 3 years ago, and now we're going to be able to do it because of technology's advances and the fact that we have this world-renowned team doing it pro bono for us. I mean, this is a real gift, and to which we're very, very grateful to these people.
Yeah, there's still a lot of cost associated with it, but their portion is amazing.
Yeah, their portion's amazing, and there's still a lot of costs that we've had to incur just out of pocket. I want to remind people, Dr. Bravo and I and the other people working on this are all doing this for free and without payment. So, the funds that you're giving, and basically if you give $10 to serious.neverendinglight.com in terms of the work that's being done with that $10, it's like as if you gave $1,000 or $100 certainly. So it's at least 10 to 1. And I point that out just because of the kinds of people who support disclosure, peaceful contact, bringing out this information. It isn't as if this is an ordinary process. You're getting people need to understand, and we need all the support we can get to continue to put the best elements of what we can in this historic disclosure film, Sirius. You're getting an enormous world-renowned team of people from many walks of life and expertise working completely without any fees and without any payment because they so much want to see the truth come out. And so this is really a labor of love for so many people. And I just want to point that out so that people realize that from the medical doctors and the geneticists and the PhDs and the everyone working on this, all the work that Dr. Bravo and Emery Smith and I and others are doing, and Dr. Loader, all this is being done at no charge. So it's very, very important that people understand that that means that the support that we do get goes 10 times further than if it was being done through a normal institution where you had a staff of people all making conventional medical salaries and PhD salaries and scientific consultancies and all of those things. So I want to point that out just because a lot of people wonder how we do what we do with as little as we have, and the way we do it is because people are really in this heart and soul and mind and really dedicated to it.
Well, that's why it's so exciting that our next step is to have this serious documentary come out, because I have to say I knew some of the witnesses, some of the new witnesses coming forward, but listening to their testimony on tape is phenomenal. It just blows me away. And these are brave people and people who are very much want the truth to come out. And that is what's so heartening. And that's what keeps me in this, doing this, because there's so many people that really want the truth out. And we hear from people all over the world who want to share their stories, and we don't have time or funds to get everywhere. I wish we could if we had a vehicle that would just take us in 5 minutes to Australia to get the testimony of someone who witnessed something during his military career and has people to corroborate, but we can't be everywhere every time. So this is the first major next step, and it's pretty exciting.
Yes, I was reading recently where a few years ago there was I think it was Smithsonian or one of these organizations raised and spent $5 million to send a team of people out to get at least one photograph of the giant squid in the ocean in its own natural environment, not a dead one that had washed up on shore. $5 million. Now, you have to understand everything we're doing is with about 5% of that, and we're talking about the most explosive technologies, the most important disclosure in the history of the human race that we're doing with 5% of what was spent to get one photograph of a giant squid in its natural environment. And I not to diminish at all the importance of photographing the giant squid. However, compared to this, so this is why I want to encourage people to contribute what they can to support this work, because as Dr. Bravo just mentioned, there are so many people and so much evidence and so much information that can come into subsequent documentaries and films when this one is successful that are waiting to be done. But, of course, we're very limited in what you can do. You have to understand, if you're doing a 30-second commercial for McDonald's or Nike, you're going to spend more than $250,000 to produce that. The entire budget we have for this documentary would be a 30-second spot for a tennis shoe. So, we're trying to do what we can with what we have, but obviously the more resources we have, the more we can include the higher quality of all the material. And more importantly, we have so much good material that's already been filmed and that we have, but getting it out to the world. We don't know yet if a major media entity will allow this film to be aired, so we may have to be able to do a major public relations press club press release process, and that alone is going to be also something rather costly, because that you do have to engage a firm to do who knows what they're doing. And so all of these things are things that haven't been funded yet, to be honest with you, and that's why we need any contributions that people can make to serious.neverendinglight.com. We'll be going to all these different aspects of this project. And I want to just give people, Jan, if you don't mind for a minute, I want to go through a list of the kinds of things that Disclosure Project and CSETI.org, the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, has provided to the production team at Never Ending Light and Armadeep Kalika. As many of you know, we just did a presentation in Santa Monica, California, a little over 2 weeks ago that was sold out, and I apologize to people who showed up at the door who could not get in, but the facility was not that large. It only held about 600 people, but it was standing room only, and I went through the material that will be in this film, and it was filmed by about 5 high-definition cameras, and in that we presented, we had clips of the best military and government witnesses to UFO and ET events. And as you may have heard, we have about 110 hours of digital videotape of these witnesses, and we have provided to Never Ending Light the best, what I call my director's cut, of 35 hours. Now, of course, this whole film is only 2 hours, so it's a lot of editing down, but that gives you an idea of the scope. We also have provided hundreds of photographs and video clips from our CSETI contact expeditions, as well as photographs and video of ET craft and UFOs that have come in from all over the world. In fact, there are people who are professional collectors of such things, like Michael Hesseman and other people who have said, look, here's what I've collected, take what you can. We're doing the same thing with other people from all over the world. So we're providing to Never Ending Light and Armadeep Kalika the absolute best photos and videotapes, daytime, nighttime, still moving, that are legitimate and very exciting evidence to them. While they were here, since I'd been on this show last, they were here at our farm in Virginia, as was our entire senior team, about 12 people here at the house, at the farm out here near University of Virginia and Thomas Jefferson's home, Monticello. And we went through all my archives and pulled out dozens and dozens of top-secret documents that are dispositive and mind-blowing, that most people in the world don't even know exist, that are authentic, top-secret government documents that establish that this is very real. And then we also went through all the correspondence files for Disclosure Project, where heads of state, ministries of defense, members of royal families, people who have been involved with the Senate, the President of the United States, various other leaders within the Pentagon, and what have you, the correspondence that was involved with me with the setting up of my briefing for the CIA director for President Bill Clinton. All of this was opened up, and they have. So there's endless amounts of this sort of material, which is very, very new. The public, frankly, has never seen it. And there are these new explosive witnesses that are being filmed, including the man who set up my briefings for the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head of the very powerful Defense Intelligence Agency, which is like the CIA, but it's inside the Pentagon, the general who was head of that, and how all that happened. Our briefings at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base with the colonel who was over the division of that Air Force Base that dealt with all the ET materials, et cetera, and so on. And then, of course, people like Paula Harris and other researchers around the world have given us interviews that they have with the Minister of Defense, Paul Hellyer, Colonel Corso, photographs, Max Poggi, who is the Commandante, the chief captain of Alitalia Airlines, who has daylight photographs of ET craft that he encountered while he was flying. This wonderful fellow medical doctor, Lynn Katai, who, of course, took the best photos and video of the Phoenix Lights, which was actually a close encounter of the fifth kind, and I was there when this happened, but she has this wonderful, and she's allowing us to use any of the photos and videos we want of that. There are countless photos and videos that Emery Smith and other members of our team, as well as Dr. Bravo and Todd Goldenbaum and Jack Allman, have taken on our expeditions where we've made contact the photo of the extraterrestrial ambassador that appeared at Joshua Tree less than 3 years ago, that was hovering right outside our circle in a trans-dimensional energy field that is the most important photograph, frankly, ever taken. All of this has been provided to them. And then on top of it, we have all the new energy research. Tony Craddock, who is the world's premier collector of information on the history of new energy devices going back to the late 1800s, working with Dr. Ted Loder, have put together the photos and images and documents and information about free energy and anti-gravity research going back nearly 100 years in different archives and files. This has been provided to Mr. Kalika, Never Ending Light. And of course, in the pièce de résistance are all these CAT scans and X-rays and films of this little creature, and to be determined, the genetic results. So now that's a lot to get into a 2-hour film. So obviously, that's probably 5 years of a television program that would have an hour a week. But this is the scope of what's being provided to the team at Never Ending Light that we have. And so it's an enormous, it's Promethean undertaking, and yet it's very, very exciting because it's really, as Dr. J. Allen Hynek said many years ago, who was the Air Force Project Blue Book head who defected and eventually admitted that Project Blue Book with the Air Force was a big cover-up operation, and then he started the Center for UFO Studies, and he basically said it's an embarrassment of riches that we have so much evidence, we have so much material that it's absolutely overwhelming. And so, putting all this in a film, what we don't want to do with this film, by the way, is just create something that would look, I hate to say this, but like on public TV, that would be a boring talking heads thing for 2 hours. So it's going to be a fast-moving, it'll combine them. But what we want to do, if we have the funding, and I hope people listen carefully, we need a really good web architect, not designer, architect. If you're listening and you're a techie, you know what I'm talking about. Because what we really want to do is create one website that has all the information from the Orion Project, CSETI.org, DisclosureProject.org, and this new film in one website where it's well organized, because everything we have created on the web right now has just been through volunteer efforts, and it's as good as we can do because it's all been pro bono, free work. But we really are looking for someone who can help us do a very professional, probably the best and most complex website in the world that has all this material, because in this 2-hour movie there will be some minutes of these top-secret witnesses and documents. But what we would like to be able to do is to have this film series go out to the world, to people who don't know anything about this subject. Because we're not creating this to preach to the choir. We're doing it to educate the entire planet. But then they could go to this website and click a button where it'd have an icon for top-secret witness testimony, and then would come up dozens and dozens and dozens of people with their testimonies that they could click and then view and listen to. See what I'm saying? But organizing and creating that is in itself a massive undertaking. But we need help with that. So if there's anyone listening who has that skill set, we need you to be involved like 2 months ago. So so that's something we really do want to do. And so I tell people this film series, I hope, will be like a portal where you go into the film and you get a sense of the scope of the subject, and then you can go to this website, and there will be document after document after document, photo after photo after photo, video after video after video, all the details and reports and genetic analysis on this being, all the different top-secret witness military materials that will be there with the complete interviews that I've already created in this 35-hour summary from the 110 hours that we have, and on and on and on and on. And so you can see the scope of this. I mean, it would be a very large undertaking, but it would create this virtual extraterrestrial library that deals with contact, consciousness, extraterrestrial intelligence, disclosure, and all the new energy sciences, all under one roof. So that's something, it's an ambitious undertaking. obviously, and I'm sure there are people who would spend millions of dollars just to create such a thing. We don't have that, but we're hoping we can create something that at least approximates this vision with some folks who have the skill set to do it. I certainly don't have that skill set, and no one on our team does, to be quite frank, but we're hoping we'll find someone who does.
Right, and the good news is we really want to get, as you said, we do have an embarrassment of riches. You have so much information you've compiled over the years, and that we have, but there's just been no way to put it out there. But this vision, that you've just put out is a way to get it out there. So that's pretty exciting. We want everyone to know everything we do. And so it's hopefully something that's going to happen. But I think you've just laid out the plan there that should be pretty exciting for most folks who keep asking us, tell us more.
Well, this is the plan, and also a series of premieres. You know, a lot of people said, when will the premiere be, and all this. Well, we really don't know. Obviously, this is early October. We're still in full production. The film hopefully will be finished sometime in December. So hopefully early next year we'll be able to get it under a wrap and begin to announce and look at a premiere. But keep in mind that's something else. This is not being done by Fox Studios or Steven Spielberg. So even to engage a suitable premiere location and get that so that the public knows it's happening can cost a great deal of funds. So again, since we don't have a normal production company or television network or movie studio behind this is all being done by us with what we've got. And so to the extent that people can help us, that's going to really open doors. And in fact, if people who are listening have contacts in the world of publicity, distribution, what have you, serious help. I know anyone can slap something up on YouTube, but I'm talking about really moving this in a first-class way to the front of human awareness from the point of view of publicity, PR, and all of that. That's something we'll need help with. And we have identified some folks who will help us with that, but they work on a fee-for-service basis, and so that has to be, of course, paid for. Not everyone is as crazy as Dr. Bravo and I, who give up our medical careers to be doing this for free. But so some people actually do have to make a living. We certainly need to make a living as well. We're just sacrificing our income to do this. But most people, you really cannot expect a professional PR firm to do it pro bono. If there is a top drawer one out there that someone knows of who will do it pro bono, then by all means, let us know. But so far, the ones we've found are people who are very sincere and very interested, but they do have a fee associated with their services, and we'll have to raise those funds as well. So these are all things that we're looking to do, and to the extent that we can do it with the public support, we want to do it that way. One thing I want to just remind everyone: all of this has been what's called crowdfunded. And it means that the public has supported this, and it's actually one of the top crowdfunded documentaries in history right now. But all the other subsequent work that has to be done, we hope can be crowdfunded as well, because what we don't want to do is give up control over either the message or the film to some big corporate conglomerate that then ruins it. And so this has become the problem. I can tell you story after story of the people I've met with at ABC and Fox and the Wall Street Journal and major newspapers who begin to want to roll this information out, and someone from inside the intelligence community and inside their corporate structure comes to them and says, do not do this, and they black shelve the information. At one point, the executive producer of ABC News came out to my home, and I gave him this 35-hour cut as well as all these documents. And he went back to ABC News headquarters in New York, and he told me, look, I'm in charge of these shows like Primetime Live in 2020 and what have you, and I'm going to have this. This is the biggest story ever. I said, yes, it is. And a couple weeks later, he calls me up and says, Dr. Greer, they won't let me run with this story. And I said, really? Who are they? And he said, well, Dr. Greer, you know who they are. So I think the public has to be not naive about that. We have a lot of people contact me and say, hey, have you contacted the documentary section of CNN yet? I'm going, yeah, right. So my point being, this is moving this if it was nonsense, if this was a film interviewing people who came stumbling out of a bar drunk that saw a light in the sky, I think, you'd have no problem getting that on CNN. When Peter Jennings did that ABC special, I was involved with that from the day it was announced. They did not put one single top-secret military witness in there. They were interviewing people who had half their teeth missing and didn't come across well, and then they interviewed the debunkers who are professionally paid people shilling for the intelligence community, saying, oh, well, none of that was true that happened in Phoenix and with the Phoenix Lights, and none of that was true that happened here and there. So what you find is that with these big corporate media outfits, the truth always ends up on the editing room floor and gets cut out. And that's what we're trying to avoid. And this is why we're doing this as a publicly crowd-funded entity and project and film. And the distribution of it needs to be that way as well. But there are good people out there who can help us with an independent film like this or independent film festivals. Some of you listening may be connected to some of them. We have one member who's already talked to us about getting into West by Southwest in Austin and others. So, anyone listening who can help us with all of that, please contact us also at disclosureproject.org, and we will follow up on the lead. That's one of the things that we want to be able to do. As you listen to all the material we have and that we've given to Never Ending Light and to this filmmaker, Armadeep Khalik and his team, what you find is that there's a potential here for not only this film, but this film could just be the pilot for a whole series of explosive exposés and information that would just continue to transform the world with the knowledge of contact, transdimensional technologies, higher states of consciousness, ET contact, new energy physics, anti-gravity physics. All of this is all in this same area that we're dealing with, and there's so much information, and it's so compelling and so mind-blowing that most people, when they come out and see what we have just laying around in boxes, their heads are swimming in circles. I know that the production team that Mr. Kalika has was just stunned as we went through box after box of material and film and images and documents and top secret material of all types, and all of this really needs to be made available to the world. But to get it out there, it's a big undertaking, and that's where all of you listening come in. And I want to thank all of you for your support that you've given so far. I mean, we've gone further than any other independent crowd-funded film has ever gone with this subject, and we hope to go even further. And it's all because all of you guys have just been wonderful at supporting the work. And I want to thank each and every one of you who have given so generously, and not just of your funds, but of your time, and also people who've sent us material or documents or photographs or what leads to information. All of that's been just invaluable and wonderful, and I want to thank everyone who's been helping.
Right. I want to echo that. We really are grateful, and it's because of you that we're able to do this. I mean, the hard work has been done by Dr. Greer, but you are supporting it and helping us to get it out. So I will echo that sentiment. I want to get back for just a minute to this little being. And one other thing that I neglected to mention, and this is also very exciting, our team member, one of our team members, suggested that he knows a team that with this CAT scan, this full holographic CAT scan image, can probably make a representation of what this being looked like. And if it turns out that it's what we think it is, and this is turns out the genetics bear out what we believe, this will be fascinating, because with techniques today, with forensic techniques, they can show most probably artistically what this being looked like, because they have all the internal structure, and that's exciting. That's nice to know.
That's right. It is, and it would be great to be able to create a 3D version of this and a physical 3D version of this creature inside and out from the CAT scan, and I think the technology exists to do that. So, it's another thing to be followed up on if we have the time and resources.
There's a lot. And again, as he said, resources are important too. We're going to go, as he said, we triage, we do the most important things first, but we're going to do everything we possibly can to evaluate this being, and we're very much looking forward to getting you the results when we have them, when they come back.
Indeed. Well, we're about out of time. I want to thank Dr. Jan Bravo for her invaluable assistance and friendship. And boy, the work of traveling all over the world doing this has been quite an undertaking. But thank you, Jan, and also Emery Smith, who accompanied me to this distant land to do this study. I mean, we were on jets for over 20 hours, but it was worth it. And I think also I'd like to again thank all the folks who've contributed to the project and to continue to support us at serious.neverendinglight.com. So until next time, folks at the World Puja Network, I appreciate your help and support. And all the rest of you, hope to see all of you soon somewhere out under the stars. Have a good day.